everybody, and thank you for coming to my senior capstone presentation. If you don't know me, my name is Daija Coleman. I'm a senior education major here at Washburn University, and I am excited to share with you the inequity of accessibility. Every building has a story. So about my organization, if you could move to the next slide. Yes. I am a part of the Linked Honor Program, which stands for Learning in the Community, and we focus on social justice and civic engagement. And over the course of 4 years, we are asked to complete 1,000 hours of community service and a senior capstone to represent that service. This semester alone, I have done over 640 hours. So that's pretty crazy, for me at least. We follow the common commitments. There are 6. They are social justice, civic engagement, diversity, international perspective, and spiritual growth. My honor service site for the last 4 years has been Communities in Schools. Communities in Schools is a nonprofit organization in 26 states which works to alleviate poverty within the school system. I've done a lot of tutoring students and helping them meet their needs with a social worker over the years. So that is really what inspired me to go into teaching in the first place and how I got involved with education. So how was I impacted? As I mentioned before, my work with Communities in Schools is what got me into the education program in the first place. The meaning of developing such good relationships with my students was really important to me, and I strive to do that with every single one of my students every day. By firsthand experience, I saw the impact that Communities in Schools was having on my students, and that was also meaningful to see that day in and day out. My advocacy work was born. So with my senior project, I've done a lot of advocacy for people with disabilities such as myself. And years later, that would lead me here to where I am now. Probably the most important thing I've ever done in my life. So my moment of inspiration for this project came at the end of October. One of my mentors, Dr. Rick Ellis, unexpectedly passed away, and that caused me to reflect on impact and what we leave behind when we either graduate or leave this world. And I wanted to make as much of a meaningful impact as he made on my life over the years, even though I knew him for a short time. So that is what inspired my capstone of making the education department accessible. When I came into that first meeting right afterwards, I really had no idea what I wanted to do, if I'm being completely honest. And then a little voice in my head said, go for the biggest thing you can do. So that is what I did. And so it began. About the project, for those of you who don't know, the education department is located in Carnegie Hall here on campus. Carnegie Hall is one of the oldest buildings on campus. It is considered historical because it survived a tornado in the 1960s. And it is not accessible. It has one small elevator in the basement that goes down one flight of stairs that leads to the library. So I myself have only seen that corner of the 3-story building. So I've never been to my professor's offices or anything like that, or seen any of the classrooms. I've gotten stuck in that elevator more times than I can count, to be honest with you, with nobody to help me, because nobody knew I was down there. And I was not able to contact help because I did not have great phone service. So that was pretty scary. And I didn't think that anyone else should have to go through that. So I've talked about this a little bit. I've been stuck on many occasions, which is probably the most unsafe thing about the whole experience, especially late at night when I'm catching up on work that I have to do. Because of where it is, because of where it's located, I don't have the same experiences that my colleagues have in the building. They are able to go into the building without any sort of accommodation and have sort of this full experience of what the department is like, and we are missing that. We're unable to hold events for school-age children because we are not sure if we can accommodate everybody. So that is also a big problem, because as educators, we are taught to always think about inclusivity and accessibility. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So who does this impact? It impacts students like me at Washburn University who have mobility challenges. It also affects people in the community, even outside the greater Topeka area. When we had the dedication of the Bob Dole statue, people were not able to get inside the building because of their accessibility needs, and so they were just stuck looking at the outside of a building at such a momentous occasion. And I've already mentioned the school-age children. In our pre-COVID days, we had STEM days and STEM camps that they would come to and participate in that were a lot of fun. And I would like to see everybody be included in those days. Why is this important? Everybody deserves an equal and equitable education. And it's important because the conversation has been going on for over 30 years. And in 7 months, I was able to make more of an impact than people had in those last 30 years, which completely blows me away. So phase 1. My first thing that I had to do was get support of other people on campus. So I started a petition which, as a few days ago when I looked last, had 824 signatures and over 2,000 shares, which is a lot of people, more than I ever dreamed. And I also ended up getting in connection with local media, KSNT, that helped share my story in the community and beyond, and help promote some of my events as well. So phase 2 was probably the point that was most, I don't know how to say, like more people paid attention during phase 2. In 3 days, with the help of my classmates in the literacy block, I was able to get a march planned after meeting with administration as to what the plan moving forward would look like. It was probably a period of 2 weeks between my first initial meeting and the march. I had gotten quite a lot of buzz through my petition, which was nice because that meant that people were hearing my story and hearing why it was so impactful. But things had gotten quiet and I didn't like that. So I decided to make some more noise. And we had about 75 people in attendance at its given point of its highest peak, which was nice because it was the middle of a Wednesday morning, so a lot of people were in class. But I felt really supported in that moment, that it was more than just me, which is why I got started in the first place. Because our university motto is non nobis solum, which in Latin means not for ourselves alone. So that was really important. Phase 3 was my most subtle phase, I believe. I wanted to create advocates for the cause, which advocates are actively involved in making change. Supporters are great and I appreciated every single one of them, but change does not happen unless you advocate. So I was able to invite nationally recognized comedian Josh Blue, who also has cerebral Wolsey to come and host an event which created a fun and safe environment to talk about accessibility and what that looks like day in and day out. Phase 4 was very passive but also very impactful. I collected stories from students, faculty, and prospective students at the university and asked them to write about why accessibility was important to them. After sending out a blast to both students and faculty, I only got 5 submissions, which makes me think about how much taboo talking about accessibility is and how much we don't talk about it, which is exactly why the problem has gone on for 30 years. Because we need to be talking about it, we need to be cognizant of the needs of other people, and we need to make those changes so that our education is equitable. And the outcome. As of today, no education classes are being held in Carnegie Hall, and we are looking to hopefully, in the coming years, move the entire department entirely so that it is accessible for all. In the words of John Lewis, never ever be afraid to make some noise and get in trouble. Make good trouble. And I think that is exactly what I've done in the last 7 months. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Can we clap first?
Yep. Yes.
Through all this, creation of your capstone, what do you feel like was the best moment of your experiences with it, and probably the most challenging moment during your whole capstone experience?
My best moment, I think, would definitely have to be the march, because that's when I felt most supported by the campus as a whole. And that was a really defining moment for me of, okay, this is real. I'm making such movement on this project. And probably the most challenging part of it all was not knowing whether or not I would actually have a measurable outcome, because I know that this is a project that's going to take longer than my time here. But I feel like I've been able to make some headway, and I hope that I inspire somebody out there to maybe continue my work after I graduate.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, you said that the conversation's been going on for 30 years and nothing's really happened. So that makes me think that there's barriers at the university, because you are not the first person in a wheelchair or with a disability to come to this campus. So what do you think have been the barriers, and do you see those barriers remaining, or do you think you helped break some of them down?
I honestly think my biggest barrier in the whole process was not knowing the truest extent of the problems. Yes, it had been brought up over and over again around the years, but I think that my personality is to not let something go as important as this. So when I kept pushing, and when I was in those meetings with administration and the faculty senate and the student senate, I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told the truth, I was honest, I was open, and I think that's what made it so impactful too, is that I told the full story and didn't leave anything out. Another question, yes?
So, Daija, you're about to graduate,
Yes.
and some of us are left here to try to make this keep going. So help us to understand what can we do to keep things moving forward? And I know you're not the expert, but
Right.
what advice can you give those of us that still here?
I am by no means the expert on anything, especially this, and I don't speak for all disabled people, but I think the most important thing is keep talking about it, keep putting the pressure on until the move happens. Don't let it slide again, because I think with me keeping so much pressure in such a short amount of time, that's what has progressed it so quickly. Are there any other questions? Yes,
I have a comment and a question.
okay?
One of the most poignant times for me, Daija, in your journey was homecoming last fall when you and Rachel and Logan and Jordan and some others helped sell donuts. You
Mhm.
remember that?
Yes, I remember
We took
that.
a picture out in front and stuff. And as we carried things into the education office and counted the money and did different things, people stood around and were laughing and joking and talking about things. And I remember Mrs. Woods and I talking after that and said, Daija didn't get to experience this.
Right.
And it really had a profound effect on me in the sense that, yeah, this is really not right.
Right.
So, after these experiences on campus, I believe that people are always advocating.
Right.
You're going to be in a beautiful building that is, to my knowledge, is pretty accessible.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do to continue your advocacy for accessibility?
I think the biggest thing that I could do is continue to advocate for myself and others as needs arise. You know, going into my own classroom in the fall, I've been thinking about things popping up as they arise, and you know, I know that I'm not going to find everything on my first sweep and on the first list, but as things come up, I have to remember that I'm not going to get it or make it better unless I say something about it. And, you know, I think that's the thing with accessibility. People don't often think about it unless they're put in a situation where they have to. And it's not maybe because they don't want to, but because it's so passive and never been directly pointed out before.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment.
Yes.
I want to say thank you for doing this movement because you have created a new way for my mind to think about things and some of the experiences that you shared from Washburn.
Thank you.
Yeah,